So I'm going to spend some time delving into what design thinking is, and I'm going to do this mostly through the help of stories, and then I'm going to talk about how we have used or some of the popular, you know, things that we have seen around. Also in TCS, how we have used this in coming out with HR initiatives and HR process improvements, policy formulation, and all of that. Right. So I'm just going to share a small deck. Just hold on. Just let me know if you're able to see the deck.
Yes, ma'am. It's visible.
Okay. So, what is design thinking? Right now, if you look around you, everything is a design. Right, a building has a design. The if you go to a restaurant, the experience that you get there, whether it is the ambience, the way the menu is crafted, the way you're seated, the way the decor is done is a design. The way a recipe is made is a design, right? It brings in a chef's ingenuity. When you go to watch movies, right? At one point in time, when we used to go to movie theaters, right? That we always had our own favorite spots, right? Which gave us a wonderful experience. A lot of design involved there, and if you really think about it, which is the most effective, well-designed working system? Any guesses? Just think. We've learned this all in our school and class. Which is the most effectively designed working system that you know of? Any suggestions, thoughts, ideas? Am I audible? I'll keep checking if I'm audible because it's raining and net could also be a bit of connectivity issue. But
I don't know. Is it a
any
human body?
yes, absolutely. Right. So the human body, if you think about it, is the most well designed, working system. Just hold on 1 minute. Let me just switch off my video because I'm seeing a bit of. Okay, my video is off. So you're right. The human body is the most, well-designed working system, right? It has so many organs, so many organ systems working in tandem, effortlessly, and it's actually a miracle, right? When you think about it, it is actually a miracle. So design is there in everything that you do, right? Now, all of us have used pens, right? Just look at your pen. Okay, just take your pen if you have one with you, or think of the pens that you have used, right? Can some of you tell me what are the design elements in a pen? Different kinds of pens. What are the design elements?
Most of the pens come with caps, and some have the that operation system at the back.
Right. So some have some have caps, some have those, push, push button kind of pens. Then you have the pens where you rotate, and the refill comes out. What else? What else is there in a pen?
In a pen, we have a hole at the edge. If it is, if we swallow it, it will be helpful for respiratory, ma'am.
I didn't get that. Can you come again?
Usually pens are at the back of the pen. It is designed with a hole. If we swallow by mistake, it will be helpful for respiration.
It will be helpful for respiration.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't quite know that. Okay, that's new information. What else? What else in the design of the pen? What are the things that you look for when you buy a pen?
Is it a ball pen or gel pen?
Yeah, so you look at ball pen, gel pen, you look at how long it's likely to stay. Does the nib dry up if the pen is left open for long? How does the grip, work when you're writing? So imagine a small thing like a pen, the kind of considerations that go into the design, right? You really never think about it, but unconsciously you always have your favorites that you pick and you continue to use them because the design, the way it is built, helps you use that tool, very effectively, right? The tool here in this case is the pen, right? So what then is the design? Is it about the aesthetics or is it about how things work, right? Very often when we talk about the word design, we get confused with aesthetics. We think it's about how it looks. We think about it's about the beauty of it, but actually, as a user, the word design means how effectively are you able to use the tool for the purpose for which it is designed. So a pen is designed for writing. How effectively does the features of the pen aid this purpose, makes its design a success, right? And that's why you will go and choose for certain models when you have to go and get a pen, right? So who is the first person who talked about design? Who made it very popular? He made it a craze among people that people would just wait for the products to come out.
Ma'am, is it Hero?
No. Okay, I'll come to that later. Now, do you know what this is? I'm sure all of you have seen this if you, either in your childhood photographs of all of us lying in the cradles, you would have seen this. Or, if you have young kids at home, or nephews, nieces, anybody, you would have seen this, right? It's a very common feature in a baby's cradle, right or wrong? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Right? So the first thing that you buy when you buy a cradle is also something to a toy that swirls around, which you hang on top to attract the baby, right? And we look at it, and there are so many creative things that you will get, and you hang it to attract the baby. Have you ever thought of it from the baby's perspective? Do you know what the baby sees here? This is what the baby sees. Right? So all those colorful faces, all of that is not visible to the baby for whom we are buying it. All the baby sees from the baby's perspective is what you can see in the second picture, right? So then when you design your thinking, when you design, a product, a service, anything, be it, right? You have to understand that the user focus is the key, right? Because the problem is of the user. It is not of what you think is the problem, right? Very, very classic example. I just love this picture because it really tells you how important it is to see things from a user's perspective, right? So now, Steve Jobs, I was asking you who was the person who made design thinking very, very popular. It is Steve Jobs. So he said design is not what it looks like or what it feels like. Design is how it works. So this is a very, very popular quote, that is used as a trigger in design thinking. And if you look at any of the Apple products, right, whatever be it, people fall in love. It's a craze. That design is a craze, right? And he's extremely popularized the feel of how a design should work, right? Why is it important for all of you here today, right? When you look around, I'm not saying that this is because the World Economic Forum says, though it's the World Economic Forum which has put together the research and said that complex problem solving, critical thinking, and creativity are going to be the differentiators of the future. But if you look around you itself, you will realize that that is the way it is, right? You think about an architect, right? At one point in time, it was enough if he knew how to design good homes, how if he knew how to build stable homes and homes which are aesthetic, right? So that's what an architect had to know. But today, when you're talking about smart homes, right, an architect also needs to know how to integrate technology into the homes that he is building. So he needs a multidisciplinary approach to even something which has been there existing as a discipline for many years, right? And that's the same thing that you're seeing in any of the aspects today, right? There are disciplines that cut across. If you take the medical field also, you're talking about robotic surgeries, right? So any field that you take today, it's all about complex problem solving, critical thinking, and creativity. World Economic Forum has helped us articulate this, but if you look around, it's something that all of us can understand, is going to be the need for the future, right? And this is where design thinking can play a very, very big role, right? So what is design thinking? Like I said, it's looking at things from the user's perspective. Now, when you have to understand a user, we talk about different revolutions, right? Today we are in the social revolution. Social revolution is all about people. People go with stories. People are all about feelings, right? So let's try and understand design thinking through three simple stories that I have taken. And then we will look at what it is as a process and how it can be used in a HR context. Okay. Do you know what this is?
Is it an MRI unit?
Yeah, it's an MRI unit, right? Now, this is one of the most popular case studies of design thinking. You can search for it. You can Google for GE Healthcare design thinking story, and you will get this story. Okay. This was done. This was done by GE Healthcare, and the designer name, right, who worked on this whole design thinking story is Doug. Okay. So he is an industrial designer at GE who designs large MRI scanners, right? So his job is very, very technical. Imagine, somebody who designs medical systems and equipments, right? It's not about aesthetics; it's about all technicalities, right? Now, one day he found that he saw a situation with a small girl, okay, who was coming there to get a scan, right? Now, she was really, really, really hesitating. I don't know if any of you have talked to people who have taken MRI scans, but even for adults, it's a very, very scary situation. Okay. If you can just Google for the sound of an MRI scanner, right? And you hear it in your headphones, you will realize how scary it is to go into that unit and lie there for about an hour just hearing those whirling sounds, right? And of course, kids, when they're affected with cancer and they have to undergo this, it becomes a very, very, dreadful exercise for them. So he saw this little girl who was walking towards the MRI scanner and, she was crying, right? So when he went and spent time with her, he realized that her whole problem, okay, the problem statement that she gave him was, my brother gets to go to the camp, but I cannot go, right? Now, we all have learned about the tip of the iceberg, or we have heard about the tip of the iceberg example, right? What you hear, what you see is only the tip of the iceberg. And when you delve deeper, you understand the root cause of a lot of things that we actually come out with as behaviors or statements that we make, right? Our value systems, our inherent fears, biases, stereotypes, all of this come out in the way we act. And what we say or what we do is just the tip of it. So when she says that her brother gets to go to the camp, but she cannot go, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of anxiety, There's a lot of remorse at missing out on things which are very, very normal for her age, right? And Doug, being a designer who actually practices and spends time with patients to actually understand and then design systems, he worked on this whole concept, right? And he came out with a whole new experience, right? So his thoughts were, we met. Okay, so Sarah is the 8-year-old cancer patient whom he met at the hospital visit. We were surprised to notice that she was scared. She had a tightly managed life, right? So you delve deeper and understand what her situation is, what her feelings are. We wonder if this means she wants to experience fun in life like other kids. And then, right, it would be game changing. So what is the differentiator that you can do there, right? Create an adventure experience at the hospital, right? So this is what the GE team worked on, and the outcome of the whole exercise of applying design thinking to something as simple as designing a MRI scanner, or not something simple, something very routine as designing an MRI scanner was this, right? So you can see the impact, that the child is going to have when it walks into a room which looked like this, very sterile, very daunting, very fearful for a small kid, to something which looks like this, but serving the same purpose, right? So looking at it from the user's perspective, and who was the user here in this case? The sample that we talked about is Sarah, and kids like Sarah who are very young, who are missing out on things which are very normal for them in their childhood to build their memories, and having to come and spend a lot of time, a daunting time at hospitals, right? So this is one example. Any thoughts, views here? I'll just pause for a minute. Have you seen this example before? Have you heard the story before? Making sense what I am saying?
Yes, ma'am. Definitely.
All right. Anybody has heard this story before?
No, ma'am. Like we heard about this MRI scanning and all, but this story was new to us.
Okay. So you see how the impact is on the kids, right? Okay.
Yes,
Now,
ma'am.
the second story that I'm going to talk about is from an organization called IDEO. They are, just Google for some of these, just note down some of these things because the time is limited. I obviously cannot go into much of details, but IDEO is an organization. A lot of case studies revolve around how IDEO has done design thinking experiments in the societal area. Okay. So the next story that I'm going to talk about, where empathy is at the heart of the design. So if you saw the previous story also, it's looking at it from Sarah's perspective. Okay. So the next story that I'm going to tell is about a social experiment that was done by IDEO organization. Okay. Do you know what this is? So IDEO is, by the way, Stanford's design school, right? That's the design school under the Stanford University. So do you know what this is? Okay, so let me tell you the story. Okay, 4 students, and these are their real names: Rahul, Jane, Linus, and Naganand. Okay, they were given a routine class assignment, right? You all get assignments to do in class, right? So their assignment was to look at affordable um, incubators, right? Affordable incubators to be kept in hospitals, right? So that was the experiment that all of them were given. Okay. So the project was to design and actually implement a low-cost infant incubator for use in the developing world. Okay, where people do not have enough facilities to take care of infants, newborns, who are born with needs for special care. Okay, so none of them on the team knew anything about the complications of premature birth or babies being delivered with issues where incubators are required. None of them were medical practitioners. They were all students who were with backgrounds like electric engineers. They were computer scientists. They were MBA students, right? They were not public health experts. Okay, and their project, like I said, was to research and design a low-cost incubator. Right. So, what is the first solution that you will look at? You will look at reducing the cost of existing incubator by eliminating some parts, by replacing with lesser, expensive materials, right? And it's very simple. And then you try and see, whether this is bringing down the cost, right? But they realize that this is not going to work. And one of the students got a funding to visit Nepal to understand firsthand the unmet need, with respect to these incubators. Okay, so when he went to a hospital in Nepal, he noticed something very odd. Many of the hospitals had incubators which people had donated, but they were all empty, right? So he was wondering, why are so many incubators empty if premature babies are being delivered in the region and incubators are required for the survival of the babies, right? So he had done his research to understand that there were a lot of deaths of premature babies happening in the region. He felt that it's probably because there were not enough incubators, but when he went to the hospital, what he saw was it was completely different. So he started talking to the doctors and he realized that the incubators were going unused because the babies who needed them were born, in villages which were miles away. So no matter how inexpensive or well designed the incubator was, the life and death battle of the babies were not fought in the hospitals. They were fought at home because the people living there did not have means to bring the child to the hospital, right? And even if a newborn, even if the mother, right, who has just delivered the baby, felt good enough to travel, had the family support to bring the baby to the hospital, she was still unlikely to leave the child and go back because her homes were so far, right? So it means that the solution had to be closer to home, right? It cannot be in the hospital. So the team goes back, they discusses on what they needs to be done, and they decide that what has to be done is a mobile incubator, right? It is to be a mobile incubator. It cannot be something that is installed in the hospitals. Otherwise, it's not really going to be life changing for the people, for whom this is to be designed, right? So, what was the problem statement or the challenge they took up, right? The challenge that you saw in the similar Sarah's example that I said, how might we create an adventure-like experience in the hospital? So, with respect to this baby incubator, the challenging statement that they framed was, how might we create a baby warming device that helps parents in remote villages give their dying infants a chance to survive? Okay, so you see how the problem has changed from building the most affordable incubator to actually creating a baby warming device that helps parents in remote villages give their dying infants a chance to survive. Okay, so this is what they came with. It's a sleeping bag. It can maintain temperature once it is warmed, and it could be used outside of hospitals to keep the baby warm at the current temperature. And do you know what this is called? It's a very, very heartening name that was given to this product. Okay, this product is called Embrace. Okay, it is taken from the way a mother holds a child very close to its bosom to give it warmth, right? That is how, if you have seen pictures of mothers holding newborn babies, they hold it very close to their bosom, right? Because the baby gets warmth. So it was called Embrace, and this was, taken up, and they felt very happy that this was done. Now, even after this, they realized that it was not very effective. Okay, And this is where sometimes when you're designing products, you have to also understand the cultural nuances. So all of us, right, or at least majority of us, or we'll have somebody in the family, right? When a doctor says that you have to take, let's say you have fever, and the doctor prescribes that you have to take, one medicine of 500, the constitution of the medicine is 500 mg, and you have to take one pill thrice a day, right? Everybody has a fear saying that are the doctors prescribing, over prescribing? So instead of 500, let me take half and see how it goes, right? I'm sure you will all have experience of somebody, or you will know somebody who does this. Okay, you always feel that when you go to a doctor, the doctor is over prescribing, so let me take a little less than what the doctor has advised and see how it goes. The same thing was happening here. There was a certain temperature at which the water had to be the temperature stick, thermometer stick had to be heated and put into the embrace, but the mothers felt that is it going to be too hot for the baby, and they did slightly lesser than what was prescribed. Okay, and so you understand how elements of human nature, culture, your backgrounds, your views, your personal views, all of that come into using a design or using a product that is designed for a specific use, right? And all of these things you will not know unless you go close to the problem and you study the problem and study the people for whom you are designing the product or the service. Okay, so that's about embrace. Any questions still here?
No questions, ma'am, but I remembered a similar incident of how, I mean, it might not be relevant, but it was a very interesting anecdote about how a different car brand was born because one of the customers had a complaint.
Okay, do you want to tell us what it is? I think it can add
Yeah,
value.
yeah. Yes, ma'am. So basically, it was the time when Ferrari was reigning as a supreme car maker. He was a famous designer, Enzo Ferrari, supercar
Right.
maker, and people all over the world were in awe of his designs. He was taking the whole world by storm. It
Right.
was then that Lamborghini was a tractor maker. So
Okay.
he bought a Ferrari, and while using that Ferrari, he felt that he had some issues with the clutch or the brake wire, some issues like
Okay.
that.
Okay.
So he approached Enzo Ferrari and he said, listen, I have been trying your car, I have been driving it, and I feel these are a few things that you can probably work on and make it a bit more easier for the customer. Enzo Ferrari, being the superstar designer that he was at that time, merely scoffed at him and I mean somehow insulted him. It was then that that guy swore to make a better car than him and then decided to venture into car making. And that is how a different brand was born. Just because a customer was unsatisfied, he made a different, entirely new brand of cars. That was how Lamborghini was born.
Okay. Nice story. Right. So you can see, right, how you can create differentiators and then come out with something that is completely new. Right. Any other thoughts? Any views from anybody before I proceed to the third story? Move on. Okay. So the third story is something that we all know. Everybody knows this. Anybody on? I mean, the audience. Does anybody know what this
Puppets?
is? Sorry.
Puppets.
Puppets, yes, but
Puppets?
these puppets are very, very synonymous to Kerala. Kerala floods, to be very specific. I don't know if you recall the 2018 floods. This was something that became the symbol of hope in Kerala. Actually, there were a lot of stories and articles that were published about this. It actually went viral across the globe. Have you heard of the Chekuti dolls?
Yes, ma'am. It was rather a campaign on that time, that
Correct.
Chekuti doll campaign.
Correct.
Yes.
Right. So Chekuti Dolls was an initiative, and I took this because it's very close to our home state. So this is an initiative by two social entrepreneurs, Lakshmi Menon and Gopinath Parel. If you search for Lakshmi Menon, you will understand that there's so much more that she does, right? Now, what was the problem statement here? I am not sure how many of you are aware of the 2018 floods and how devastating it was for Kerala as a state, right? Now, one of the segment of people who got impacted by this was the Chedamangalam is where much of the handloom comes from for Kerala, where the weavers are, and this was just before the Onam season, and if you've been in Kerala for enough and you're from Kerala, you will know that majority of the sales for Kerala, the most prosperous time for everybody, traders, people, everybody in Kerala is Onam, right? And these floods came just before the Onam season in that year, right? And that is the time when the produce of these people, the saris that they make, the maximum number they make and they save for Onam season, because that is where you have the maximum sales, right? So when the floods came in, the stocks that these weavers had were enormous. Okay, they had huge number of saris, and all of these saris were caught in the floods because the water had entered into their homes, where it had entered into the area where they keep their looms. The looms were destroyed, and the water came in with so much of dirt that it left scars on all the saris that were there. Right, so there was a huge heap of soil garments that could not be cleaned, and the weavers were at staring at poverty, right? Because all their looms were badly damaged. The goods that they thought will bring them the prosperity to take the year by had not really, all of that had got damaged in the floods, right? And that is how the concept of Chekuti dolls was born, right? So Chekuti, if you the word stands for Cherile Kuti. Cherile means some the Kuti is basically you all understand Malayalam, right? So you know what Kuti is. I'm just being generic because I don't know. There might be people from the states as well who are studying here. Kuti, everybody knows the meaning of Kuti? Yes, no?
I think small doll.
Sorry. Yeah, it's
Doll,
a small.
ma'am.
Kuti is something that you refer to as a child, a doll, whatever,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, that's how the usage is. So Chedamangalam Kuti or Chekuti was, synonymous to saying it's a doll that has originated from Chedamangalam, so Chekuti, and Cherile Kuti. Chera is basically dirt, right? So somebody who's come from that kind of a background, right? And the beauty of these dolls was, I don't if you please go back and Google, and you will see there were huge campaigns to make these dolls, right? I remember even in Infopark we had some 2-3 sessions of different companies coming together and making these dolls and selling these dolls. The dolls were priced at 25 rupees each, right? And the beauty of this is it was not prescribed. You could draw a doll, you could make the doll the way you wanted. You wanted somebody who was smiling, you wanted somebody who was grinning, you wanted somebody who was sad. Each one, depending on the mood that you're going through, the dolls were made, right? And I remember in that year for Christmas, right, there were many hotels, there were many organizations which had put up Christmas trees that were fully made of Chekuti dolls, right? And how did it really help the weavers, right? One sari that they sold, right? Normally the selling price of one sari was about 1,300, 1,400 rupees, right? And from each sari, they could make about 300, and if I remember at that point in time reading about it, it was about 350, 360 dolls that you could make from one sari. And each doll was priced at 25 rupees. So the value of every sari goes up to 9,000. Okay, simple math. What saris that used to be sold for 1,300, soiled clothes, because of this initiative, you can imagine the kind of returns that the weavers have got, and they could rebuild their lives. Right, and it is a beautiful example of how if you go out into the society, if you really understand the pain of people, and you try and come out with solutions to ease their life, right, the returns are very, very rewarding financially, of course, for those people that you benefit their lives, and for you as designers, right. There is a sense of having contributed, a sense of satisfaction that is unbeatable, right. So these are three stories that I wanted to tell you. So the first one was GE Health Care story. Please Google about all of these stories. It's very, very interesting to read. I've just given it to you in brief, but there are research papers on each of these stories and how they have actually made a difference by looking at a problem from a user's perspective. So GE Healthcare MRI scanner. The second example that I gave was of IDEO, which is the design school of Stanford, and Embrace, that was the product that they designed. The third example that I gave was of Chekuti dolls, right? Which is very close to our homes, right? So these are three examples of design thinking where we look at things from the user's perspective. So now, what is design thinking? Anybody wants to attempt by correlating with these stories? What do you think is design thinking? Anybody who wants to give an attempt?
Designing something which will be useful from the user's perspective. Like some of the people will be having less money to buy all the fancy stuff and all. In this third story, we can relate that we can buy one saree. With that, we can make $300 to $400, right?
Right.
That was my perspective.
Right. Any other perspectives?
Ma'am, I think design thinking is a human-centered approach to innovation. Like, it majorly considers the human.
Yeah. So that's the most simplest design thinking definition. Okay, it's a human-centric problem. It's a human-centric process for creative problem solving. So you have a problem that you want to look at creative solutions and solve it, but you don't want to solve the problem without keeping the user at the center of it, right? So it's a human-centric process for creating problem solving. Are you able to relate this definition to all the three stories that I narrated?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So Sarah was the first example. The second example, whether of Embrace, where they thought about the new mothers and the premature babies who are meeting with untimely deaths. Right. The third, was the weavers of Chedamangalam. Right. So in all the three stories, you can see that it's the user, the person who has the problem, who has the need, who is put at the center of it, and you come out with creative options to look at how you can solve that problem. Okay, very, very simple. I don't think you'll ever forget this. It's human-centric for creative problem solving. Very simple, right? So now, who's a designer? Any idea who's a designer? What comes to your mind when you hear the word designer? Any thoughts? Who do you think is a designer?
Yeah, a person who draws or designs
A
something.
person who draws or designs. And how does this person, just come out? We all have, images in our mind when you say a word, right? For example, if I tell you to draw a house now, I'm sure 90% of you will draw a house with sloping that same triangle roof. Yes or no? That we have been drawing from school.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So we all have some images set in our mind, right? So when you say a designer, who is a designer? Designer is somebody who draws, right? One answer. What else is a designer? How does a designer look? What, I mean, just tell me
He
top of the
think
mind, whatever comes to your mind.
he
I'm
thinks
like a
something
fashion
creative.
designer.
Sorry?
Something creative, like a fashion designer or something like that.
Okay, so a fashion designer, he designs fashion. So what are the attributes of a designer? So fashion designer designs fashion and things like that. But when you talk about designer as a word, what are the attributes that come to your mind? Somebody said a designer is somebody who can draw. What else?
And one who gives
Designer
life.
can express
Sorry?
in designer can express
Ideas, maybe.
Okay, a designer can express ideas. Okay, how does a designer
Very.
look?
I don't know if you can like box a person into like a particular. Something that comes to my mind is some person who's really imaginative.
Okay, a person who's very imaginative. Yes. What else? So we said somebody who can draw. We said somebody who's imaginative. Somebody who can articulate ideas. Who else is a designer?
Who gives life to existing things.
Sorry?
Who gives life to existing things, like bringing out something in a more beautiful way.
Bringing out something in a more beautiful way. Okay. So we all, yeah.
Sorry, ma'am. A problem solver, like a critical thinker for a
A critical thinker, a problem solver, somebody who can draw, somebody who can articulate, somebody who's imaginative, right? So we've got a lot of these terms. Now tell me, how many of you think you are designers?
I believe I am one, man.
Why do you say so?
Because I come up with stories and small short films and some creative things like artworks and all.
Okay. So you dabble with a lot of creative stuff.
Yeah.
So you say you feel that you are a designer. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Who else? Who feels that? Does somebody here feel that they're not a designer? Is there somebody here who feels that I'm not a designer? I know you will hesitate to say that, though you may think in your mind that, I don't think I can design, right? Because why? Because we are biased in thinking, or we are stereotyped in thinking that a designer has to be imaginative, a designer has to be creative, a designer should know to draw, a designer should be articulate, right? So these are all stereotypes that we have built in our mind, right? Now you go back and think about the stories that I said, right? The first the person that I talked about, he does not come from a creative space at all. His job is as monotonous as designing a medical equipment. There is no creativity involved in that. Okay. You look at the second story. None of those students are people who have a background. They are not artists. They are not any sort of designers, right? So all of these things that we said, they're not dabbled in any creative arts. So who is a designer? Okay, from a design thinking perspective, a designer is somebody who is curious, who seeks to understand what the problem is, tries to grasp the problem holistically, and avoids judgment of the problem. Okay, this is a designer. Okay, you need not know everything, you don't know everything, so you need to be curious to know and try and understand what you don't know, right? Sincerely seeking. Now you think back to the embrace story, right? If the four students who were given this assignment, if they had sat in their classrooms and gone by the typical approach of finding a solution to that problem, do you think they would have really helped in solving that problem? They would not have, right? It's only when they went out to where the epicenter of the problem is, that they understood what are they actually trying to solve. Right? Understand the problem. Right? Try to understand the problem from different perspectives. Right? So you have to talk to so many people that who are experiencing these problems. So that is why when you're designing a product or a new product to be launched, there is a lot of market research that goes. I'm sure you've all heard of this popular ad of Coca-Cola, right? That was launched in the Middle East. So it showed a very tired man who's very, very exhausted. Then there is a bottle of Coca-Cola and he's extremely refreshed. Right? So this is a very pictorial ad that was launched for Coca-Cola in the Middle East. Extremely tired, fatigued man. There's a big cold bottle of Coca-Cola. And, after that, there is a man the same man is completely refreshed. Right? Now, what did we miss? We missed that you read from right to left in that part of the world. So what did you actually see? You saw somebody who was extremely refreshed, having a bottle of Coke, and then becoming very fatigued and tired. Right? So it's extremely important from a design thinking, for a designer from a design thinking perspective, is not somebody who's artistic, need not be artistic. If you're artistic, it helps you, in the ideation stage of the process, which I will come to, and the prototype stage. But, you need not be an artist. And I want all of you to understand this. You don't have to be an artist. You don't have to be somebody who dabbles in creative arts. You don't have to be somebody who knows how to draw to be a designer. Right? You need to be curious. You need to be seeking, which means you want to really know, you are interested in understanding the problem. You want to, get a view of the holistic view of the problem. And then you want to stay open about, the problem, and not bring in your frame of references that you're used to kind of preempt a solution to the problem. Right? So this is a designer from a design thinking perspective. Clear? Any queries on this? Okay. So now let's go into what design thinking is as a process, and I'm going to keep it very simple here. There's a lot of content that is available, or this is actually something that requires much more of a time, but I'm just going to give it to you in a small, capsule form that you can consume for now. Okay, let me just open up my next presentation. So we talked about it's a human-centric approach to creative problem solving. So these are the 5 stages of design thinking as a process. Okay, relate back to all the 3 stories. It starts with empathizing. It starts with understanding your user, understanding the whole socio, economic, cultural, all aspects of the user that goes with it, right? So it starts with empathy. Then you go into defining the problem, right? I gave you a view of how the problem was defined for both the MRI scanner, that experiment that GE had done, as well as for Embrace, right? What they started out as a problem and how they redefined the problem after understanding the user context, right? So empathize, you define, then you ideate. Okay, you ideate about how you can solve that problem. Right? And this is a stage at which you really have to go crazy. You have to go crazy means you really have to go crazy, and you have to force yourself to bring out quantity in the ideas. Okay. Don't go judgmental at this stage at all. Thinking that this will work, this will not work. Just go, keep on jotting down ideas that come to your mind about the problem. Right? Now, once you ideate, you try and see what is a prototype. Prototype is nothing but a feel of the product, the service before it is launched. You test it and then you go back, right? So the difference between design thinking and other processes is that design thinking is not linear, right? You empathize, you define, you ideate. If it is not working out, you go back to the empathy stage. Okay, maybe something has not clicked, you have not understood the user, you go back, right? You test, you find that something is not working, go back to ideate, right? Or is there a problem in the way you have defined the whole context, right? So you go back to the defined stage, right? And you can keep going cyclically. So if you just go to you all have mobiles with you, right? Can you just go to Google and search for design thinking process? Just go to Google, search for design thinking process and go to images. Anybody has done it? Google design thinking process.
Yes,
and go to
ma'am.
images. So you will see a lot of loops and cyclic diagrams, right, that are there.
Yes, yes.
Yes. So that's what I was trying to say. It is not a linear process. It's a cyclic process. You can go back to any stage. You can revisit any stage and then come back to the drawing board and then go again to the next stage, right? Till you find that you have really understood it and your prototype and test is actually working and has met the need, unstated need, stated need of the user. Okay. So this is what is called the double diagram. Again, it's the same processes, but this is how you approach it. So there is a divergence. When you are empathizing, you have to go all out. Okay, you have to go all out and collect as much as data as you can about the problem, the user, the context, everything, anything and everything. You have to go all out, right? And it is about co-creation with the user. We talked about it being human centered, right? It's about stories, right? So that is a stage at which you diverge. Then when you're trying to define, you have to narrow it down, right? You have to come down, you have to come closer to what your statement problem is, right? And then you again diverge at the time of ideation and prototype. So you identify extreme users, you try and gain insights, you find the right opportunities, you go all out again as a divergence at the stage of ideate and prototype. And when you're testing, you again come back and convert. So this is called the double diamond approach of design thinking. So empathize and define. So diverge, converge, diverge, and converge. Empathize stage, you diverge, you go all out, you narrow down your problem statement. At the time of ideation, you again diverge, right? And when you're prototyping also, you do divergence. And then when you're testing, you come closer and then you can go back, right? So this is the process of design thinking. Connect back to the stories, right? They embrace the MRI scanner. The starting point was seeing a young girl crying, right? And then Doug had done research with a lot of similar children, spoken to parents, understood the issue, right? When he came and defined the problem, right? At the stage of ideation, there were a lot of options that were explored, which is there in the research papers on this. You can read up on that. And then you test it, and then you see if it's actually meeting the stated needs, right? Clear on this? Any questions, or can I progress? Shall I move on?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes,
So now there are three things that come together. Somebody said design thinking is a human-centric approach to innovation, right? So there are three aspects to it. We talked about human values, which is the user. So there is a usability, there is a desirability, right? And I'm talking this from a business context and why so many companies are today adopting this. There is a technology element to it where you look at the feasibility of doing something. And then the business viability. Does it make sense to take this up and follow this line of business? Okay. So the meeting point of all these three coming together is when you have innovation happening, right? Now, any of these things can fall apart. Okay. Can you tell me some examples of bad design that you know of or you can think of? Any examples of bad design? We talked about pen, we talked about, I mean, as something as simple as a pen, how, so much of importance of design is there. So can you think about anything which is a bad design, any service, any product that you have used and you felt it is a bad design?
Ma'am, when you asked about this, one thing came into my mind. Earlier, there was a design for iPhone, like iPhone cup holder, and it was criticized a lot, and they had to withdraw that decision.
Why was it? What was the pitfall of that
Because
feature?
it was not at all user friendly, and customers felt that like they tried to bring in a new idea which is not actually useful for the users.
Okay,
Just
so
for the sake of creating something new, they have added that, and not really useful.
What was this feature? Can you tell me what this feature was?
It was a cup holder for iPhone.
A folder for iPhone. So what do you think was the need that they were trying to meet by introducing this? Was there any stated need, or do you feel that there was any need that was there which triggered them to come out with this?
That I'm not sure.
Okay, no, I'm just asking from your perspective. I have not heard of this, so I'm just trying to understand this. Do you think what could have been the need with which this was introduced?
Ma'am, I think it was part of their branding, like increasing their branding, and it's kind of a lifestyle thing, I think.
Right. So maybe that is where that's a classic example. Then, in case in for how products or services fail when you are actually not looking at any stated need that is there, right? That's a good example. Thanks. Who was this who shared this?
It's me as Ma'am Aditi.
Yeah, Aditi. Yeah. Thanks. Good example. Any other examples that you can think of? Any feature? All of you use WhatsApp,
Yes, ma'am.
right? Have you used the feature of delete message?
Yes, ma'am.
Right? Isn't it an irritant actually that when you delete a message, the person gets the message saying that the message has been deleted?
Yeah, and 90% of the time they ask what we have deleted.
Correct. So what's the whole point of having a delete the message feature when the whole purpose of deleting a message is to not inform the. I mean, you're quick to delete, right? If you're deleting a message, you do it immediately, and the whole purpose is that the receiver should not know that something has been sent, right? So it is an irritant, right? Actually, and defeats the whole purpose of why this delete the message feature is there. What other can you think of examples of bad design? I want to trigger your thinking, because only then you will be intrigued about the topic. What else can you tell me as bad examples of design?
Ma'am, I don't know if it fits the
Ma'am,
bill, but like the body structure of a particular car called Baleno of Maruti Suzuki, yeah, it was found to be of very weak quality, and that was
found to be very
weak in like safety, like the body quality.
Okay.
It crashed
Okay.
very badly. Yeah.
Okay, so then that is not even a design thing, that is even worse, right? That's a safety feature that is beyond design. But yeah, right.
Ma'am,
They're not. Sorry,
Torjeen.
Didn't hear you. Sorry, I couldn't hear you. If you can repeat yourself. Not sure who was trying to speak, but I couldn't hear.
Torjeen.
Door chain.
No, I was saying Torjeen. Jeans.
Torn jeans.
Torn jeans. Why is that a bad design?
I felt it is strictly banned in some colleges, and the ways to we usually wear dress for not showing off the body.
That's a personal preference, right? That's a personal preference. So that's not a bad design. It probably, if I'm not used to, or if I don't like, such kind of things, I may be judgmental about it, or I may feel that it's not right, because that is my perspective. But that's not a bad design, because there are a lot of people who have a liking for ripped jeans and all of that, which is something that they go to. So that's actually a matter of personal choice and preference. It is really not a bad design, um, right? So that's why I was saying that when you're looking at things around you, try and refrain from bringing our own personal frame of references into it. Right? For example, I may not like somebody who's okay. A constant refrain that we see is that like you were talking about, the way people dress, the way people have their personal choices, preferences. I think these are things that are not related to bad design. It's a personal choice and preference. It's just like choosing a phone, right? When you choose a phone, you have so many things as your stated needs that you want to meet when you buy a phone. Somebody else may have a different need, right? So that is a different thing. It's not a bad design. It's more a personal choice or preference, is how I would put it. You've heard of Google Glass?
Yes, ma'am.
All of you have heard of Google Glass. Do you know what it was?
We are using it, ma'am, for
Sorry?
some subjects. Like we are using this Google Class for some subjects.
Okay, so what does it help you do?
So it will help us to submit assignments and to attend our daily
I'm not
classes.
talking about Google Class. I'm talking about Google Glass, as in wearable.
Google Glass. Okay.
Yeah.
I
It
haven't
was a
heard
product that was launched by Google, Google Glass. It was touted to be a very, very innovative thing where, when you wear something and you look at it, it will give you a view of all data associated with that object, right? But it was a big failure because people are not comfortable. Imagine, if your parents had Google Glasses and they could wear that and look at you and find out, how much of time you're spending on phone, whom you're talking to, what is your spending pattern, where are you spending your time, all of that. Will you like it?
Definitely not.
Yeah. So the cultural aspects of some of these things are missed out when products are designed, and that is why Google Glass, which was supposed to be a very, very brilliant innovation by Google, actually did not, stay as a fad for a very long time. Okay. Another example, bad example of that we use daily life, I'll give you, is ATMs, right? Now ATMs which give you the card after the cash has been withdrawn, right? Is a bad design, because why do people go into ATMs? It is to get the cash. So the immediate tendency is, once you get the cash, is to turn around and leave, right? So if the card comes after the cash has come, there were a lot of instances where people were leaving the cards back in the ATM machines. So the cash should actually be the last thing that comes out of the ATM machine. The card, once you enter all your details, you should have the option to take the card, should pop out, you take the cash, and then you go. Okay, this was a finding that was again, there are research papers around this, you can search. So what I'm trying to say is, you look around you, you will get hundreds of examples of bad design, good design. So next time you are going somewhere, just explore and be curious about this. Right? I'll move on. Okay, this is the last example that I have of Instagram. Okay, so this is how the value proposition statement I was talking about, how you craft it. I'm giving you an example of how you can do it. Okay, so what is Instagram? It was designed as a tool for casual photographers. What is it? It is a photo sharing app that allows you to share moments of your life. What was a key differentiator? It makes a single photo special, unlike Facebook or Flickr. And this was at a time when everybody has an awesome camera phone in their pocket. Okay, So this is how the value proposition statement or the problem statement, was defined for Instagram. And it's all about understanding the user needs. So Henry Ford had said this, right? He Henry Ford was the he's the first General Motors and all of that. So he was saying, it is his popular quote that when he went before he designed cars, if he had asked people, they would have just said that we wanted faster horses, right? So this was at the time when motor cars were not yet invented, and he could realize that unstated need had come out with something that he designed. Okay, these are more stories you can Google for. I gave you 3 of them. GE Adventure series we talked about Embrace, we talked about Chekuti puppets. Google for Keep the Change, Bank of America story, Water Wheel, Airbnb, Seawater, Seesaw water pump. How they made pumping water fun in a school by linking it to a seesaw, so that when kids were playing, the water would be pumped out, right? The Good Kitchen. These are all fabulous stories that you can read about design thinking. Okay, 3 of them I've told you. You can note down the rest if you're interested, and you can read on these stories. Right. So lastly, these are few principles that you have to bear in mind. For anything connected to design thinking, you defer your judgment. Okay, you encourage wild ideas, the wildest of ideas. In fact, if you take up a course on design thinking, at the ideation stage, you are taught various tools of ideation. Like some of those are very popular and have been in existence for a very long period of time, like like 6 thinking hats and all of that. But there are also new tools that can help you generate ideas, by forcing you to think. Right? So you may think that you're not an idea person, but when you actually use one of these tools, you're forced to think along a particular line, a particular way, and then you will realize that you're able to come out with ideas. You don't really have to be, an imaginative person. It helps, of course, it helps. All of those traits help the process. But I'm saying that, like I was trying to explain with respect to who is a designer, right? Ideas can come from all of us, right? Stay focused on the topic. Ensure that when you are thinking about it, you don't digress, but you think about aspects, you think about ideas that are related to the topic. Go for quantity, be visual. Okay. Now this is where, somebody said, designers are people who can draw. All of us can start, sketching in small ways. Right? If I tell you to draw a house, if I tell you to draw a flower, if I tell you to draw a baby, all of us have ways in which we will draw it. So we can start in slow ways, drawing things, because when you see something visually, right, it stays with you, right? So when you're ideating, in whatever way you can, right, start drawing some of those things that you're ideating about. You will find that over a period of time, you are making yourself become creative. Okay, and build on the ideas of others. You don't have to be isolated and say, this is my idea, I'm going to work only on this. That is where I talked about the multidisciplinary approach. Okay, take in the best of everybody, keep building on it, so that when you are done with ideation and you want to go into prototype stage and you want to try out a solution to your problem, you have thought about things from different aspects, and everybody has contributed to the whole process of coming out with the solution. Okay, so this is about design thinking. I'm going to stop here for now before I get into the how this can be applied in HR. Any queries, any questions that you want to post now? Anything that is there?
If some kind of product is designed or like it was organized, so if it is judgmented by people, how that goes, like everyone's perspective is differs, right? So in that case, how can we
So
deal with
you
that?
have to be clear on your target segment. Okay, you have to be clear on your target segment. Let's talk about the same example of ripped jeans that was brought up, right? Now there is a definite market, there is a definite set of people who prefer, those kind of, what do I say, fashion or trends on their clothing, right? So you need not, when you're coming out with products, you have to look at what is an extreme user and what is an average user. Extreme users are people who will use, anything and everything given a context. But you may also have the average user who is more, more constrained or more focused or more, what do I say, boundaried in their choices. Okay, so when you're designing products, that's why I said the market research, the user acceptability, you have to look at. Okay, not every product everybody is going to take to it, but you will definitely have a certain set of people who are going to use it, given their personal preferences. Right now, you may choose to not take up that product because it does not match your stated need. That's fine. It will still have its takers. Right? Even if you take something as simple as a soft drink, right? There are, though it's very difficult to make out the difference in the taste, there are strong preferences for certain people for Coke over Pepsi, right? Of Mirinda over Fanta,
Yeah.
right? 7-Up over Sprite.
Hmm.
Right? Now, if you ask them to explain what is the difference, it will be very, very, very difficult to actually say how each of these are different, but people have their strong preferences.
Yeah, okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Right? Yeah. Anything else?
Ma'am, do you think group thinking is at times a challenge for design thinking because due to peer pressure, some people may not express their idea completely?
So that is where the ideation has to be a very, very, what do I say, an exercise that is done on equal footing. For example, I'll tell you, in TCS, when we are taking up some aspect and we are trying to do design thinking, we will have people, we are trying to apply design thinking. We will have people who are from various departments or functions coming together. We will have people who are from different levels in the organization coming together. Okay, so the first premise that we start out with, the basic rule that we say is your, your designation, your role, your hierarchy in the organization remains outside the door. In fact, one of the exercises that we do is we ask people to take a piece of paper. We ask them to write their name, their designation, their role, and then we say you scrunch that piece of paper and you throw it into the waste bin. Because here you are only there as a person who has to bring in relevance to what is the topic being discussed. Right, and it has to, the room has to, the discussion space where you are getting together to ideate, right? Everybody has to be given an equal place. Everybody has to be given that comfort that each and every one of them is a valid contributor, right? So that kind of an ethos has to come out in the group, right? That's why I said, if you notice anybody saying that, look, I don't think this is going to work, you'll immediately, somebody in the team will pause and say, we're getting judgmental. Let's pause. This is the stage of ideation. Let's only look at ideas. We'll see the feasibility of the ideas at a time when we are trying to look at narrowing down to what works for us.
Okay.
Ma'am, is there any are there any particular activities or exercises that we can do to increase this quality of us, the design thinking?
Yes. The first and foremost thing is, I said, the attributes of a designer, right? Be curious about things. Be curious. I mean, you go back to your room, you just look around and see, right? What is the design of? WhatsApp, for example, the example that I gave. Have any of you thought of that as a design issue?
No, ma'am, probably not.
Right. So you have to be curious. You have to continuously start, looking at things, observing things, and trying to understand. Okay, if I'm looking at a glass, if I'm holding a glass, which is the purpose of which is to consume liquids from, whether it is water, coffee, whatever it is, right? Try and see if it meets the design. I remember I brought a set of coffee mugs 2 weeks back, and then I realized what a bad choice it is, because it looks aesthetically beautiful, but it's very difficult to hold, right? Because that loop that is there outside is very narrow, and I can hardly insert one finger into it, right? So it defeats the purpose for which the cup was created, which is, for us to have a cup of coffee, right? It's very difficult for me. So while it's a new set of cups, I've just kept it aside, and I still go back and use the same old coffee mug that I'm comfortable with, right? So it's simple things like that which is going to make a difference. So anytime you're using something, try and see if it is, if that's a good design, right? If you're able to use it for the purpose for which it was built. So just being mindful about things that you're using is the starting point of it. And then you can slowly, get into the next stages of learning about ideation, different tools of ideation. How do you, get into problem statement defining and all of that. But start as a curious observer.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. So now, from this perspective of understanding what design thinking is, when we talk about HR, right? It is very, very natural to think that when HR is working for people-centric, HR is a people-centric function, and we are here to, as with people as our customers. It's extremely important that in anything that we do, we try and put the user perspective. Okay, which is not how the case was some time back. Even in TCS as an organization, I remember a time when policies were drafted. Right, there was hardly any consultation that used to be done. A corporate team used to be there, so policies were framed by corporate and executed by regions, right? But then the voice of on the ground, the voice of the people on the floor, which is actually managed by people who are closer to this customer segment, was never taken into consideration. So today it's gone a large sea change into when policies are being formulated, you are having cross-functional teams that are set up from across geography, across regions, to kind of try and give input. So policies has actually become a co-creation process with people who are closer on the ground. Okay, if you look at design thinking, any and every aspect of HR, you can apply this. Right from designing your onboarding processes to see if the people who are joining your company, is it a good experience for them? Do a discussion with them. Find out what's going wrong. I had designed a process called InSync for our lateral hires. Okay, the word is InSync, and it means I connect with them about 2 months once they are into the organization to understand, are they really in sync with the organization, right? Or is there something that we could have done better from the time we started interacting with them as prospective candidates to the day that they join the organization? Okay, and a lot of things have evolved from those kind of discussions, which helps us enhance the onboarding process. Okay, a lot of policies can be made inclusive. Okay, if I look at the TCS example, we were one of the first organizations to say that in a health insurance scheme, we will accept same-sex marriages. Okay, so marriage is defined as an institution and as a process. Typically it is expected to be between a male and a female. But today is the time when you're talking about LGBTQ, you're talking about inclusion, and we were the first organization to say that we will, in our health insurance scheme, accept same-sex marriages, and the word spouse was replaced with the word partner. Okay, small examples of how being inclusive, how by understanding your customers, you can make policy changes. Okay, another example that I recently saw was the introduction of period leave for women. Okay, it's a segment. It's something that people don't talk about. But the very fact that organizations have gone ahead and brought about these policies show that they want to, make people feel inclusive. They understand the pain of a large segment of their workforce. Okay, a lot of organizations have today brought in leave policies, and I know TCS also has this for adoption leave. Okay, if you look at couples, a large problem that today married couples go through is not the ability to not conceive, right? And they go for adoption. Now, as per labor law, if you go, you get maternity leave, you get 6 months, all of that only if you are a new mother, right? But you don't get that for adoption. So understanding the segments of people that work with you, you can come out with leave policy. So these are some of the examples that I'm giving you, right? Period leave, adoption leave, co-creating policies with taking inputs from even employees as to the whole process. The other thing I remember, one of the initiatives that we did, I'm not sure how many of you have heard of this. TCS had come out with the first ever Fit for Life to promote fitness, a corporate challenge. So this was a fitness activity that we promoted amongst our fellow corporates. We called in people from different corporates to participate in a run that we were organizing. Now, when we were organizing this run, we said the most obvious thing is that it's going to be a marathon. It's going to be a run. People are going to come. They are going to assemble. They're going to run and come back. Now, what can we make? What can we do to make it even more appealing to the participants, right? That is when we got together our music club, our dance club, and by the time the participants came back, it was like a huge carnival there. Okay, and this is something that people have really, really appreciated. Okay, same concept that we took from restaurants. Okay, you look at restaurants today. What is the most obvious thing in a restaurant? You go to a restaurant to have food. So it's a given that when you go to a restaurant, you're expecting good food. Now, the question is, how can restaurants up their game by giving the customer something more than food? So if you go to a lot of cafes today, there are breakout rooms, there are books kept all over for people who want to pick up a book and read. There are gaming areas that are there. So along with food, you have so many other options that are coming into place, making it a very good user experience, right? So each and every aspect of HR that we take, we can actually put this into place. Now, another example, and this is the last one that I'll give before I'll stop and if I take some questions, is when we were designing the mentoring system for TCS. Now, earlier, how it used to happen is people, we've always had a focus on mentoring, but it's been a very linear process in the sense that if I, as a associate, want to get mentored, I can raise a request in the system. HR looks at my background and then looks at who is an available mentor and then assigns me a mentor. Okay, so I don't know who this person is till I have had an interaction. I don't know much about the person. I don't have a profile or I don't have a background into this, and we get into a discussion. Okay, now if you look at it, this is from the associate side. Now, from the mentor side, when you talk about mentoring is something which is something that everybody talks about. So we think it's very easy, right? Oh, you are 10 years experience, you've been with the organization for so many years, you're equipped to be a mentor. But it is not as simple as that. Okay, even with 10 years experience, people don't know what is actually to be done in a mentoring session. What is the right way to carry forward the discussion? Where do I start? Where do I end? Is it going to be a one-time activity? If the associate that I'm talking to wants to continue this session, how do I facilitate that? Am I expected to do that? So these were all questions that were there in the minds of the mentors. Okay, now these have all come to us after various levels of discussions that we have had with both segments of the users of the process. Okay, and then we came out with a process where today, if I am an associate and I want to undergo mentoring, I can go into a system. It gives me the profiles of all people who have published their career profiles in different areas. So if I'm a salesperson, I can look for people who are sales leaders who have published their profiles, look at what are the kind of geographies that they've serviced, and then I can connect with them. If I'm a technology person, I can look at people who have worked in the technology area. I get a feel of somebody. I choose my mentor, right? And from the mentor's perspective, we introduced a whole process of getting themselves certified, right? We took them to training sessions. We handheld them by tagging them to senior mentors and observing them in 1 or 2 sessions so that we understand how mentoring works, right? And we came out with different levels also to enthuse the people. So we have silver certified mentors, we have gold certified mentors. So these are all things that you can publish, in the internal platforms that we have, and gains a lot of visibility and helps build your brand in the organization, right? So these are some of the examples of how we can apply design thinking in HR in anything that we do, whether it is policies, processes, systems, initiatives. All of these areas we can clearly apply the concept of design thinking, because HR is all about people. It's all about designing for people, and it's all about creating processes and initiatives for people, right? So these are some examples that I have, and I think the essence of what I wanted to talk about today as well. And we can have a discussion if there are any queries, and otherwise I am done from my end.
Guys, if you have any queries, then you can ask.
Did you like the concept of design thinking, whatever you've heard of it?
Yes, ma'am. It was very interesting, and it was a new take on things. I was hearing it for the first time. So,
All right. So read more about it. A lot of, like I said, I gave you one slide which shows a few stories, but that's just a trickle. I would say there are many more stories that you can relate to where this process has been applied, as a way of thinking, and we've seen a lot of merit in the outcomes. All right, if there's no queries, then I think, back to you guys to draw it to close.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So I would like to welcome Vishnu for the vote of thanks. Vishnu Sangha, is there?
Yes, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. So very good evening, one and all. I hope that was a very beneficial session to everyone, as it was on a very important topic to us management students. So now let me get into the duty I'm entrusted with for this evening to express my gratitude to everyone present in the session. First up, I would like to thank our guest speaker, Rajasri ma'am, for making time from her busy schedule to take part in this program and share valuable information with us on the topic HR, design thinking in HR. So we were very fortunate to have an eminent figure from one of the most prestigious organizations in India like TCS to lead the session. It was a really informative and engaging session, ma'am. Thanks a lot. So next, I would like to thank our HOD Shafi sir and Srijit sir for their presence in the session. Thanks to the both of you. Also, I'd like to express sincere thanks to Mr. Jidin Chakalakar, our industry mentor, for his active participation and support. Thank you. I also extend my gratitude to the organizers of the session for their efforts to conduct the session. It's really commendable. Thank you, guys. Last but not least, I would also like to thank each and everyone who turned up this evening for their presence and their participation in the session, and thereby making it a grand success. So once again, I would like to thank all of you from the bottom of my heart for your cooperation. Thank you all. Thank you.
Right,
Thank you for the interesting session, guys. Thank you, ma'am. That was a great
Thank
session.
you. And I'm just saying that if all of this doesn't make sense, also it's okay. I was just thinking to when I was a student, we had a session on NLP. At that point in time, that was a hot topic that was organized. I don't remember much of it, but there's one technique that was taught then that I still apply. So it said if you are in a stressful environment, you're going to make a presentation, you're going to talk to present to very senior people, talk to very senior people, and you're daunted by the prospect of it. Just imagine all of them as cartoon characters. Right, and then you will find that you relieve a bit of a stress. So anytime I go for a senior level presentation, I feel I'm a little daunted. I look around the room and all I can see are minions. Right, so that is a technique that I learned or I heard of at that point in time, and I use it. So all I'm saying is it may not always, the entirety of it may not make sense to you. If bits remain with you here and there, and it the thread picks up later, that's also fine. So thanks for being a great audience, and thank you, Jitin, for having me or given me this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.